All right, y'all, welcome to the Lawrence Souffrant podcast, sponsored by Irvly Production. He makes me look great. Please like and subscribe so you can be notified of future content. Today, we're going to be talking about how to get to know other people. This is a part of my dating series, so if you have not seen the video before this, how to get to know yourself, please watch that one first. I don't care how well you think you know you can always learn greater or better tips to know yourself. Now, how to get to know other people, and why not even start with getting to know yourself first? Because the reality is the way that you view the world is contingent on how you view yourself. Now, this might have to be proven and really broken down into a higher, conversation, but trust me when I say that how you perceive yourself is how you perceive the world. It influences how you perceive the world. And so if you don't know how you're viewing yourself, you'll be ignorant of how you're viewing the world. In other words, when you're looking at other people, what connects you to certain people is your ability to see yourself in them. And so that connection most of the times is subconscious. You're not looking at a person and saying, oh, they're like me in this way, or oh, they're like me in that way. No, it doesn't really work like that. What happens is you will see them and you would have this almost instant attraction. And many of us, we don't take the time to examine what this attraction is about. And honestly, you don't necessarily have to. But what I want you to know is how you view yourself, your self-worth, your confidence, all of that will influence who you connect yourself with. You'll see somebody and something about them reminds you of you subconsciously, and that's really where the connection is coming from. You won't say that, but your insides, your brain will know that. And so as you're getting to know them, your objective, your ability to get to know them objectively is almost impossible because context matters, situations matter, vibes will change outcomes. And so the vibe that you bring will influence the vibe that they bring and vice versa. And so you're really getting to know them from situation to situation. But what happens is as you spend time with them, as you're talking to them, you should start to notice a pattern, a common thread, if you will. And so here's the thing. If you don't know your own patterns, it's going to be very difficult to recognize the patterns in other people. Right? You may not notice like those common subtle nuances. And so when I say getting to know other people, what I'm really dealing with is friendship. How to become friends, how to make friends, how to know that they're actual friends, who you should connect with, who you shouldn't connect with. All of that stuff is really being discussed in this conversation. And so when I say friend, this is what I mean. I deal with different layers, right? And we'll go deeper into that with intentional dating. But you have those that are acquaintances. These are the people that you see, once in a while. You might see them frequently, but you're not really building any personal relationship with them. But the nature of seeing them over and over and over again creates a certain connection, a familiar vibe, right? And so remember, repetition is how you program the subconscious. That's a gem that translates across many scenarios, right? So as you become familiar with someone, there is a tendency to assume a closeness emotionally based off of a closeness based off of proximity. Proximity doesn't really determine closeness. If you know someone, if you have a friendship or a relationship with somebody, and the proximity affects how close you are to them, it's because you haven't really gotten into that deep relationship. And that's okay. I'm not saying that's a bad relationship or something you need to throw away. I'm letting you know that if proximity is the anchor of your friendship, then it's not the authentic or genuine or deep friendship that you're really looking for. And because we're talking about dating, right, that is the context in which I'm talking. You want to be able to develop a friendship with someone that is absent of romantic intent. You want to get to know the person for who they are first. So am I saying that if you're attracted to them that you shouldn't be friends with them? No, actually I'm saying quite the opposite. If you're attracted to them, get to know them without going into the world of what it would be like to be with them romantically. Because if you pay attention to all of your relationships, you will realize that you are the most authentic, and honest with your friends. Your friends know about the mistakes you make. Your friends know about all the inner secrets. Your friends, your close friends, I should say. They know all of these details about you. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit, so let me back up. Your acquaintances aren't going to know these things. When you show up to your acquaintances, you typically are going to show up in your best self. You're going to look good, you're going to dress good, you're going to smell good. You're going to show up at your best self, and that's good. All relationships start as acquaintances. You're dealing with strangers, right? Remember, listen to it. I know it sounds really basic, but let me really help you break it down. When you first meet somebody, you are meeting a stranger. You do not know them. And you have to fight the pride to assume you know them based off of what you're seeing right now. You see somebody who looks good and smells good, and you're making all types of predictions about the type of person that they are. You don't know them. And vice versa. You see somebody looking bummy, may not have their hair intact, whatever, and you're making all of these predictions about their character, about who they are. These are strangers. So you see your acquaintance every day, and they might show up in a similar way every day. You still don't know them. Your greetings are superficial. Hey, how you doing? How's the weekend? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. Y'all not getting deep into character. You're just having social conversations, small talk, if you will. That's your acquaintance group. Then you get into the actual friend group. The friend group now is where you start having interactions that are more personal, more intimate, not too deep, but more personal. What do I mean? So with your acquaintance, you're like, how was the weekend? You might say, oh, the weekend was good. I had a great time. How about yourself? Oh, yeah, my weekend was great. Went out with the friends. All right, that's cool. And then that's it. It's over. That's an acquaintance. And we all start there. The friendship conversations go a little deeper. They start asking questions like, oh, is it the same friend group that you go out with every weekend? Right now you're trying to actually get to know the person on a deeper level. We're not diving 6 feet, right? But, we're getting out of that shallow space into a more intimate space that's still safe. Because here's the reality. Everybody is not safe to be intimate with. What I've learned is a lot of the relationships that are a struggle or that fail or that seem to be a headaches is because we assume a safeness based off of being familiar. Just because you're familiar with someone doesn't mean that they're safe for you emotionally. I want to drill this point in because you're opening up to people that you still don't know because you haven't interacted with them in a certain way. And I say interaction is more than just conversation. It does start there, right? We're going to talk after work. Let's say you meet somebody at work and, it's a high and by or whatever that y'all might try to get together for the weekend, but it's all the coworkers. So it's still like a business type of vibe. When you start talking outside of that atmosphere, that's when you start getting into the friendship mode. Like, what are we really discussing? What are we talking about? And there are key things that you should ask if you want to get to know someone. First thing that you want to ask is, what are the things that happened in your life that shaped the person you are today? Now, you don't got to ask it in that way because that might sound very therapeutic or life coach-ish. I am a life coach, so I'm going to frame it that way, right? And if you need to book a session, hit up your boy because I got you, right? So, but you don't have to necessarily ask it in that way, but you want to ask questions that kind of help you get an idea as to what happened in their lives that shaped them to be the person that they are today. You wanna get to know their relationship with their parents because our parental relationship is so impactful to us. And not just the relationship with their parents, because they can have a bad relationship with their parents, but they may have done the work to get the healing from said relationship, which shapes them to be the person that they are today. You want to know about their friend groups. Do they have any childhood friends? If you're of a certain age, if you're in your 20s, then all of your friends are childhood friends, right? And so cool. But if you're in your 30s and your 40s, do you have any friends that survived the test of time? Real friends, because you're just getting to know them and you're moving into that friendship space. But do they have the character to sustain a friendship? Because some people don't even realize that who they are causes them to be seasonal people in other people's lives. And they blame everybody else for being seasonal. They never looked internally and said, hey, maybe there's something about me that makes me seasonal. right? And I might be talking to a seasonal person. If you're someone who don't have any childhood friends, I mean, not even one, then there's a good chance that there's something about you that makes people feel like they exhausted the relationship. Like they get to a point where they feel like their season is up with you. And that could be for a plethora of reasons. You might be pushing people away without even knowing it. You might be finding fault in people that aren't really there. They're projections of your own faults. And because you don't know yourself, you don't realize that you're projecting who you are on them. And there are the things that you don't like, so you blocked it from your subconscious. And you're creating a version of these people that's not even really authentic to who they are. And nobody wants to be friends with people who don't see them in their true light. And they definitely don't want to be in a relationship with someone who don't see them in their true light, right? So this is why getting to know yourself first. I know I already did a video on that, but for those who didn't follow my instruction and jump straight to this, you really need to go back and make sure that you know yourself. So now if you're talking to someone and you realize that they don't have any friends beyond you, or they don't have any childhood friends or long-lasting friends, that tells you something about them. That is what I would call a red flag. Does it mean you have to completely disqualify them? No, because you're just dealing in a friendship realm. But it is something that you want to keep an eye on. You know, you want to be careful as to what you divulge. Also, you want to make sure that you're doing activities together. You're out in different type of settings. Going out to lunch and dinner, that is one setting. Going out to different types of restaurants, that's another setting. You know, how you eat at, let's say, Burger King is going to be very different than how you eat at, let's say, Ruth Chris. And none of those are sponsors. But if you want to be, holla at your boy. Yeah, right? But all jokes aside, you know, going axe throwing, going bowling, like the event is fun. And the activity is fun. But let me help you get a little deeper. Have fun. I'm not saying don't have fun, but be observant. How do they take losing, right? Or how do they take messing up? How do they handle when their order is wrong, right? You want to pay attention to all these things as friends because it gives you the opportunity to know who they are. And hopefully you will accept them for who they are, meaning you're not going to try to be romantic with them based off of who they could be, right? Let me say this. This is a little early, but I do want to say this. Get out of the business of trying to heal people so you can be with them. Get out that business because it is not your job to heal people so that they can be romantic with you. You're taking on a burden that's way too heavy. You want to get into the business of getting with people and accepting them for who they are, flaws and all, because nobody is perfect. But you're being with them. You're saying, you know what? I know them. We went through all the friendship stuff, and I'll back up because there's more levels. But we went through the friendship stuff. I know them. I know exactly who they are. I know what ticks them off. I know what gets them motivated. I know all these things about them, and I want to be with that person. I can see the potential. I can see there's room for growth, which is a good sign. That's a green flag, mind you. But I'm not getting with them with the expectations of reaping the benefits of their growth. I'm getting with them because I love who they are, and I believe who they are now in the present aligns with who I am. I jumped ahead. You're going to hear this later, but I want to throw that out there, especially for those who have short attention spans. All right. So you want to do different activities where now you're getting to see them in different settings. You're getting to see how they treat other people. And as you're doing this, you're starting to now morph. You're starting to evolve from just a friend to now being like a close friend or best friend. For me, they're one and the same. I know with the younger generation, y'all might have a difference, but for me, they're one and the same. Close friend, best friend. Now you're getting into actually finding out who they are in very intimate spaces. So now you're going to family functions. You're inviting them to your own family functions. And I'm not saying one time. I'm not saying they met your cousins or your brothers one time and you're making a judgment of who they are. You have no idea. That one time they could put up a front. They could have been nervous. There's so many reasons as to why they showed up, how they showed up that one time. You want to do this regularly. Especially if you're dating with intent, and that's a whole nother video that we'll get into. But getting to know them is about actually learning who they are. The who, what, where, when, why, how of a person. So who are they? How do they identify themselves? That's a really good question to ask somebody. How do you see you? If you were to describe yourself, let's say in 3 words, what words would you use and why? I know that sounds cheesy, but it's very important. Because if they can't articulate who they are, they probably never thought about it. And if they haven't thought about it, they probably don't know themselves as well as they might give themselves off. Like, in other words, because I'm jumbling with my words, but I want to be clear. People are ignorant of how they're strangers to themselves. They don't know who they are because most of their lives, they've just been surviving or just making it through. They have learned how to interact in situations that are successful in their book, and they are content with that. Now, if you're that type of person as well, then the relationship might work. But if you're a deeper person, a person who authentically knows yourself, then you need to be with someone who also authentically knows themselves. And so asking these type of questions in a friendship environment, it relieves the pressure because you can't lose what you don't have, right? In other words, you're not in a relationship in the romantic sense of the word, so they can't break up with you. You can't break up with them, right? If they don't like you, who cares? We're just friends. And if you don't like them, who cares? We're just friends, right? So it relieves that pressure. When you go into a space with the romantic motives as the forefront, you're automatically going to present yourself in the best light, and ultimately you're going to front. Let me just keep it 100. You're going to front. You're going to show a version of yourself that's not sustainable. It's like what I tell all the guys, man, and you're going to hear this in another video too, but you're dating a girl and you buying her flowers and you're taking her to the nicest restaurants and you're doing all these things. You're booking her nails and her hair did, and you're doing all that to kind of woo her and win her over. And you're doing that in the talking stage, right? Y'all not even together. In her mind, she's thinking this is going to be the experience when she is with you. And then y'all get together and now the dates slow down and you're not paying for the nails and the hair. And of course she's disappointed. Of course she feels like she's been bamboozled because you presented a version of you that's unsustainable. But if you're not doing that for your friends, why are you doing this for a stranger who is entering the friendship zone first? I don't think the friend zone is a bad zone. And as a matter of fact, I believe that your life partners will be found in the friend zone. And that might be a hot take. But a lot of you brothers, you get mad that you got friend zoned because you never even tried to be her friend first. You should have started there. And for the sisters, I mean, I'm not a woman. I don't know how y'all think for real. And I'm lying because I know exactly how y'all think. I know y'all like, man, I know y'all like the back of my hand to keep it 100. Y'all just don't know yourselves, so you think I'm capping. I'm just telling the truth, right? But no, all jokes aside, if you don't know the person, if you're not friends with this person, then you have no idea who you're giving your body to, who you're giving your mind to. You're giving the most intimate parts of yourself to a stranger. Does that sound safe? Would you advise your children to do that? So when you're becoming friends with someone, you're getting to know them, you're going out on dates, you're doing axe throwing, you're doing bowling, you're going out to different dinners, and the quality of the conversation is so important. And so for the brothers, I want to talk to the brothers for a little bit. Sisters, you can listen. You don't have to chime out. But for the brothers, I want first for the brothers to commit in being the leaders of their relationships, including their friendships. I want you to be the leader. And so this is coming from that idea of you leading. I want you to be vulnerable first. But I want you to be vulnerable in a safe way. So this is what I mean. Let's say you're talking to a shorty, you're having conversations, and now you want to get to know a little bit about her past. Not necessarily her body count, but her past. And you might say something like, tell me about your most toxic relationship. And she might go, whoo! And she might laugh like, yo, we going there, whatever she does. And then you say, well, before you do that, let me share mine. That opens up all the doors. Right there, just that little piece of game right there. You're actually, tell me about your most toxic relationship, but before you do, let me tell you about mine. You're leading, and the level of vulnerability that you disclose opens the door for the vulnerability that she will disclose. So you want to lead in that. This is how you get to know people, by leading. And so you should have an answer to whatever question you're about to ask. And if you don't have an answer to that question, don't ask that question. And I'm the guy, if you don't have natural charisma, if you just not him for real, it's not a shot at you, but you know what I'm talking about. You're not that guy, right? If you're not that guy, there's nothing wrong with having pre-prepared questions. I think that's fly. To say, I'm about to take this shorty out on a date. We're still friends, but I know that I'm attracted to her and I want to get to know her. There's nothing wrong with having questions already prepared. Questions that deal with her spare time. Questions that deal with how she makes money. Questions that deal with her interest in life. Questions that deal with her goals in life. These four right there, questions that deal with her parental relationships, very important. Questions that deal with her friendships. These 6 things, very, very important. And you want to be very clever on how you ask these questions. But when you ask these questions, you want to be present. If you're the guy who has prepared questions, first have them memorized. Don't read no questions out of a phone. But if for whatever reason you just are that corny and you can't memorize these questions, then turn it into a game. Say, hey, I want to play a game with you, 10 questions or whatever, right? Like turn it into a game so that way at least you don't look corny, right? At least it looks like you had some type of intention. But when you're asking these questions, you want to be present so that you can ask what I call probing questions. These are the questions that weren't prepared, but based off of her answer or his answer, because women, you could do this too. But based off of her answer, you now have new questions to ask. That means you have to be present for the answer. And the questions, for every question you ask, you should have at least 2 probing questions. I said 2. And these probing questions are designed to get deeper. Because if you ask, tell me about your most toxic relationship. And she's like, yeah, I was with this guy and, he used to like beat me up and he used to talk down to me. And, we were together for like 4 years and then I did. You said, oh, wow, that's so crazy. All right, so tell me about your job. What? You should have so many more questions. Like, what do you mean? It doesn't even sound like you was listening, even if you were listening. But what's most important, it doesn't even sound like you care about her. Right? It sounds like, you just moved on and there was so much meat on that bone, pause. Like, you could have gotten so much deeper, pause, in terms of your interaction. And you wasted an opportunity to actually get to know her. So one of the reasons why we're really not getting, because I could really go on and on about this, I'm going to give y'all more examples, but one of the reasons why we really don't get to know people is because we're so locked in our heads about not looking bad and about not being offensive that we miss the opportunities to extend genuine olive branches for intimacy and connection. We're so afraid of offending people, and we're so afraid of what we look like to ask such a question. When, if someone tells you a story like that, they are a DV survivor, then, an appropriate response would be, well, I'm so thankful that you survived that situation, that you got out of that. How did you manage to heal from that situation? That's a legitimate question. And the response to that is so important. Because if she says, well, I'm still in therapy working through that, that doesn't disqualify her, but that lets you know that you might have to move slow if you actually want to be with her, right? And it also might mean you really need to generally be her friend and not jump the gun in getting into a romantic relationship because she's still not done. She's still going through her journey. And she might be amazing on the other side, but you don't even know who she's going to be when she's done with this journey. So you just want to be present. You want to be, being a friend is about being present, being close enough to get to know them, to see if you could actually do life with them. Right? And then after she explains whatever it is that she's doing, whether she's in therapy or she says something like, I'm not in therapy, I kind of just, it was just a season. I was young, I'm older now, I'm not really worried about that. Then another probing question might be, well, are you against therapy? Do you think therapy is a waste of time? Like, what's your thoughts on mental health and like how important is it to you? That's, once again, a probing question, but it's a great question to get to know the person. All right, so let's take it somewhere else. Let's say one of your questions is, what do you do during your spare time? Let's say you're asking a woman that, and she says, oh, I like to watch reality TV, and, I like to get my nails done. I like to go to the club with my girls. Those are great, right? She sounds like she's for the streets, but she may not be for the streets. That she might be answering authentically, or she might believe that it might have worked for her. Like, this is what guys like to hear because she's so used to men wanting to have sex with her that she's not used to the guy who actually enjoys a reader. So she doesn't lead with that, right? So you don't want to judge her just yet, but she might be for the streets. I'm going to keep it 100 with you. So a probing question. So what about when you're by yourself? What are you doing when you're by yourself? Like you've watched all the reality TV, like there's no more, you caught up on all the episodes. Is there anything else that you do? That's a great probing question because maybe she might say something like, well, I don't want you to think I'm a geek or anything. Like she might lead with her insecurity in that and then go into something that's a lot deeper about her. Where she's like, well, I do play the piano or, I do like to read books, whatever. Like then you get to know that side that she didn't lead with. Just because someone doesn't lead with that side of them doesn't mean that side is not there, right? So the way that you ask questions and the way that you respond with probing questions will give you a more well-rounded answer as to who they are. And so when you realize she reads books, what books do you read? Now, if you're a cornball who don't read books, I'm talking to the guys, you need to start reading books, bro. Like, let me already kind of put a little tangent here. You trying to get to know people and you're not reading no books, bro? Like, what are you doing? You're not educating yourself. You're not growing as a person. You need to get ideas of just higher thoughts. Like, I'm not saying you got to read philosophy, though. I think that's a great thing. But you should be actively reading every day, reading something. There should be something that you're interested in, that you are actively engaging in that helps you become better. Like if you're not working on yourself, then here's the truth. You're going to attract someone who's also not working on themselves. And y'all going to be an awesome fit until one of you wakes up and decides to be a better person. That's when the rift in your relationship is going to happen. And I've seen it over and over again where when y'all got together, you guys were equally yoked, and then somebody came across my content and realized that there's more to life than what they've been doing. And now they're working on themselves. They're binge watching my stuff, and their partner has no concern about being better. It creates a tear. It creates a disconnect. So you should already be committed in being better, and you should find somebody who's also committed in being better. That is my general suggestion to you. Now back to getting to know people, right? The probing questions allows you to see what's behind the curtain. Now, until you get to the space of close friends, don't expect the answers to be too deep. But you should expect some level of depth. And here's the hard reality. You're doing this over and over again. You've been going out to eat. You've been doing activities. You've been having conversations 4, 5, 6, 7 times. If there's no depth in the conversation, at some point, you have to accept that you're dealing with a shallow person. Especially if you're asking the probing questions and you're asking what I call updating questions. So here's another tip to kind of help the conversation going. Because some of you don't even know how to talk to people, right? To keep the conversation going. If somebody tells you, let's say they tell you, oh, I'm in school, I'm trying to get my law degree. Let's just say somebody's, you're dating someone who's in law school. Cool, you know that. You ask a probing question, well, what made you want to be a lawyer? You get into that story, okay. Next time you talk to them, you should be asking them, how's law school going? Such a basic question, yet a question that shows, number one, you care about them, and number two, you're actually receiving the information that's being given to you. Because nobody wants to waste their time. And that goes, look, for the ladies, let me talk to the ladies. Guys want to know that you're interested in them too. If a guy is telling you, let's say he's into real estate and he's working on closing this deal for a house, and then 3 weeks later, it would be wise, especially if you want to get to know him as friends, but you find him cute or whatever, right? It will be wise for you to be like, hey, how'd that deal go? Did you close on that deal? It just triggers in him, oh, snap, she actually listens to me, and she cares about the things that I care about. You don't have to become a real estate investor, right? But you could just do those follow-up questions. That's what I call them, follow-up questions, update questions, right? Where you are asking questions that are connected to previous conversations. That's how you get to know people. So if they're a reader and they tell you, and you ask them, if you find out that they like to read books, natural probing question, well, what book are you reading now? What is it about? Let them go off about that. Oh, that sounds interesting, whatever. Tell them about whatever you're reading, et cetera, et cetera. Days later, you ask them. You could even text them or call them. Hey, how's that book going? What chapter are you on now? Natural progression of the conversation, but it gives so much impact. the way that that fosters relationship, I mean, this is priceless right here. I'm telling you, this is priceless. The other reason why you want to be present and remember certain things is because it allows you to know what gifts to give that person. So part of getting to know a person is also giving gifts. Listen to me carefully. You don't want to give gifts to strangers unless you're doing community service. I'm sorry, back up. You don't want to give money to strangers unless you're doing community service. You want to give gifts to friends. You can give money to friends, but remember, they're in the friend zone, but you don't quite know them yet, so they're still strangers. Don't give strangers money unless you're into community service. Hear me. Let me help you. If you know that they're into, okay, I did a reading. Let's say you know that they're into fitness, right? And you find out that, you know, they're into whatever. They're trying to build muscle mass, whatever it is. So let's say, even better. Let's say they're into running. They like to go on hikes and they like to run marathons. Let's just say they like to run marathons. They're long distance runners. That's what they do. They run 5 miles every morning and it just helps open up their minds. A great gift would be running shoes, right? Something like running shoes. Or maybe a shirt or some pants that runners wear. I'm not a runner, so I don't know, right? But something connected to running is my point. You buy them a gift that's connected to running. This is why that's so powerful. One, you're giving them something that's relatable to them. Everybody should appreciate that. If they don't appreciate it, that's info about who they are. And you're going to want to know that as early as possible. So when I say as early as possible, I'm not saying the next day. Or you have a conversation with them, then the next day you go on Amazon and you send something to their house. No, you look thirsty. Slow down, right? But I'm saying after a few weeks or months of you having this conversation, buy them a gift that's connected to their interests and see how they respond to the sentiment. I would even say this, the cheaper but more thoughtful the gift, the better. Because if you want to save yourself a world of headache on a relationship perspective, you don't want a person who is unappreciative of the small things. The small things are the sustainable things in any relationship. The big things are one-offs. They happen here and there. But the small things will be continuous throughout any relationship, including friendships. And I hope you guys are buying your friends gifts. You have their birthday, you have Christmas, and guess what? You have a random Wednesday because you love your friends. Buy your friends gifts. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it just shows that you thought about them and that you know them well enough to buy something that's relevant to them. And if you're having real conversation, they will tell you all the things you need to know about them. All the things you need to know. If you know they're a reader, and it doesn't have to always be a surprise. You find out they're a reader, you come across a book that fits your genre, that's a great conversation piece. Hey, have you read this book, such and such? And they might say, no, I haven't read that book. It's okay to say, I'm going to buy that book for you. It don't have to be a surprise. It's not less of a gift just because you told them what you're going to do. You could tell them, you haven't read, I'm going to buy that book for you. Oh, nah, you don't got to do that. Don't even worry about that. I want to do that because I know that's something that you're interested in, and we're getting closer. And because I'm starting to see you as a friend, the more that we interact, I want to buy a gift. I want to buy this book for you. This is what I do for all my friends. Don't gas yourself. It ain't that serious. That usually leads to a little chuckle or laugh. You know what I mean? It's cute or whatever. But yes, see how they appreciate the small things. If you know that they're into running and then you find a museum for runners, take her there, right? You know what I mean? It's cute. It's not meant to be, you don't got to take her to Dubai. See, the women that want all that fancy, flashy stuff, she's for the streets. I have a video that talks about her being for the streets. I got that, right, producer? Irvy? All right, good. Go back and watch the video. I break all that street stuff down. I talk about players, pimps, and hoes. I do all that, right? Go watch that. I might even connect it to that video just so that you can have some context. I already break that down, so I don't want to go there. I want to help you get to know people. I think I really covered everything. Oh, hold on. Before you go romantic with somebody, remember, you're friends with them, right? So you're going through all these activities, you're having all these conversations. You have to see them when they're excited. You have to observe them when they're excited. Something good happened in their life, something worked out in their life, and you're seeing how they are, who they are in that state. You have to see them when they're disappointed. And let me be clear. You shouldn't be the source of their disappointment in the beginning. Your friends, why are you disappointing them? Like, what is wrong with you, right? Like, if you say you're going to do something, just do it. You shouldn't be the source of their disappointment. But you want to be present with them long enough where something doesn't go right in their life, something that they wanted to happen that didn't happen. You want to see how they handle disappointment, because if you're dating, there will be a point where you disappoint them. It's going to happen. But you shouldn't do it early on, because why? It just, my brain, if you can find a context where it makes sense that you disappointed somebody in 3 months, please let me know. Like, just let me know. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and your schedule is hectic, that should have been discussed early on, right? So I can't see a scenario. So put it in the comments if you know a scenario where it makes sense to disappoint someone 6 months of knowing them. Like, I don't understand, right? Like, there's something wrong here. To me, that's a major red flag on your part if you're disappointing people. And if they disappoint you in the first 3 to 6 months, that's also a red flag. There's something unstable about them. I'm saying that 10 toes down until you give me a reason not to, right? But you should be with them long enough where somebody disappointed them, a friend, a mother, somebody disappointed them, and see how they handle disappointment. See how vulnerable they're going to be about that disappointment. You want to see them when they're sad. You have to see them when they're sad. Not just disappointed, but they're actually sad. They lost a loved one. Or, I don't know, they got into a car accident, and they worked hard for that car and they got totaled. Whatever, right? Whatever makes people sad. They burnt their French toast. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever makes them sad, you want to see how they handle being sad. Because remember, your job is not to change them. And how they handle sadness is what you'll have to deal with. You have to see them when they're angry, like they're pissed off. How do they act when they're angry? Do they bleed on you when, like, somebody else got them angry, but now they're treating you like you're the one that got them angry? That doesn't mean cut them off. Some of them, they might be worth that. I wouldn't be with nobody like that, right? Me personally, I wouldn't be with nobody. But you might have a tolerance for that, right? Remember, you know yourself. You got to know yourself in video 1. And you might have a tolerance for that. That might not be a deal breaker because all of the other good things that they bring. That's for you to assess. But you have to know what you're working with before you become romantic. And in all of these states, I don't think I missed any, but there's whatever emotional state, high emotional states, how they feel when they're threatened, how do they handle feeling threatened, all of these things. Your job now is not to necessarily judge them, though there is a little bit of judgment. It can't hold you, right? A little bit of judgment, but your job is not to judge them. Your job is to ask yourself, do I have the capacity to deal with that? Because some people, even when they're happy, there's so much energy in their excitement that for some of you is overbearing. You can't handle it. Some people, when they get excited, that's all they're talking about for a week, 2 weeks, a month. They're so excited, that's all. And if you feel like you're being neglected and then they're no longer concerned about you, then you can't be with a person like that, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's all about capacity. But if you can be excited with them, and if there's a way for you to they can find space in their excitement to include you, and you find a way to navigate that, then maybe this can work. But you have to see them in those heightened emotional states. For a lot of you, you haven't even seen that person sad until you started dating. And you don't realize that when they get sad, they get into a funk. They down, like they get depressed. And you didn't know that. And now you want to break up with them, which hurts even more, when you could have avoided that whole awkward moment by getting to know them as friends. I'm going to say this, because it's the elephant in the room. A lot of you want to skip this friendship stage because you want to go straight to having sex. Let's go ahead. Let's address the elephant in the room. It's already a long video. I might as well keep going. You want to have sex, and you don't want them to feel like they're whores, or you don't want to look like a whore yourself. So you get into these relationships to have sex. Look, if you're grown, if you're a teenager, go talk to your parents, okay? But if you're grown, you're taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your bills, I want you to hear me clearly. If you want to have sex, go ahead and have the sex. But if your history teaches you that having sex too soon disrupts the actual getting to know process, then wisdom should tell you to not have sex until you get into that relationship. And not to skip this friendship stage just because you're horny. But you're grown, so if you just want to have sex, go ahead and have sex with your friends. Because getting into that relationship stage without knowing them leads to far more heartbreak than just getting that sexual tension out or that sexual fulfilling that sexual attraction, getting it out the way, saying, okay, I did that thing, and let's just move forward. Now, some of you, you know that if you have sex with someone, you're going to bond with them. If you're that person, then don't have sex and go through this friendship stage celibate, or maybe you're just masturbating, or you have, a F buddy on the side, whatever. But don't have sex if you know is going to cause you to attach to that person. Now, mind you, going back to that first video, you have to know yourself well enough to know if that's true or not. Let's not play these games. I'm talking to grown people now. You know yourself. You know that you get into the clouds, you get dickmatized, or you get pussy whipped the moment you hit them cheeks, right? If you know that about yourself, and you want to date properly, then part of your mistake is probably the fact that you're having sex too soon. That might be the reason why you haven't found the relationship that you're looking for. Or you might have had sex too soon and now you're committed to someone that you should have never been committed to, but because you're dickmatized or you're pussy whipped, you can't break up with them. You can't let them go because they got you in a chokehold. And they have to release you before you're able to release them. Stop doing that. Practice some sexual discipline. And that's for both sides and everything in between. Practice some sex if you're that type of person. Now, if you're the type of person, you can hit the cheeks and everything is normal, cool. Now, for the sake of social responsibility, don't hit them cheeks just because you can move forward without knowing if they can move forward. And if you're talking to your friends, there's a way to have conversations about sex that doesn't lead or that doesn't mislead somebody into thinking this is a window for us to have sex, right? You can have a conversation where if you're being transparent and you're saying, look, I find you attractive and, I am sexually interested, but I don't want to take those steps if that's going to mess up the friendship that we're building. There's nothing wrong with saying that. And hopefully you can practice some control because the goal is to get into more intimate spaces without crossing those boundaries. Because if you're able to not cross those boundaries, you know what happens? You end up proving that you're trustworthy. You end up proving that you're safe. And for a lot of you, if you know you don't have the discipline, then you should really be working on yourself, but also having that understanding with whoever you're dealing with. Though you are friends, we're grown and we want to have sex. And I think sex is a God-given right. I do believe sex in a deep relationship context is safe. I believe sex in marriage would be ideal, but I don't believe socially we are in a position where that makes sense when we reach a certain age. I think waiting till marriage to have sex is great if you're in your 20s and you're still a virgin. But once you pop the Pringles, you can't just eat one Pringle. I'm gonna tell you now, right? So the truth of the matter is, once you've had sexual experiences, you're gonna want to have more sexual experiences. For the average person, I know we're all different. So don't go up in my comments like, "Oh, but I know I had sex and I was able to wait." Okay, congratulations, right? I'm talking to the general population. You know what I'm saying? But once you've had that euphoria called an orgasm, you're going to want that again and again and again. And for my brothers who lost their virginity to that woman, you don't love her, okay? You don't love her. Pussy is great, okay? That's not love. God did his good work. And I understand you feeling all these feelings. It ain't love, bruh, okay? It's just, it is that good. That's why wars start because of it. It's a beautiful thing, okay? Love is a principle, and you have to know the person to say that you love them. Look, I gave y'all a lot, and I'm going to stop here because most of my videos ain't even supposed to be this long. Put your comments in the chat section, whether they're questions that you need me to do videos on or whether they're comments of disagreement. I'm accepting them all, but remember, you are important. Your presence matters, and if nobody else tells you, I love you. Peace.